Gladiator to movie review.
Still to come. Rome has so many subjects, she must feed them. They can eat war. The arena turns slaves into gladiators, and gladiators into free men. You have something in you. I knew it from the start. Did you know? Rage. That rage is your gift. This is about survival!
Do you know what I love the most about movies and especially sequels? When the sequel is just as good as the original, if not better. We rarely see those instances and where that is apparent. Now, Gladiator 2 is one of those movies. To me, Gladiator 1, which came out in 2000, Russell Crowe was hands down one of the best movies to come out in that decade. Not alone that year, that decade. That was also the precipice and start of DVD. I remember watching Gladiator on DVD at the crib. That's how far I go back with this movie. So I was invested in this movie and it paid off tremendously. Now, this rendition of the movie starts off with Lucius. Lucius is the son of Maximus. Now, if you guys can remember, I know it's been a while. I'll try to give some spoilers without giving a little bit of spoilers into to the backtracking of this. But if you guys can remember from the previous Gladiator, Lucius was sent off in a range to be spared. So when Maximus and Commodus, who you guys might remember from the first one, was the evil emperor who Joaquin Phoenix played. After the death of Maximus, then Lucius is essentially ushered out the city and trying to be saved by his mother. And in the midst of that, he actually doesn't actually end up getting saved. He end up going into slavery, ends up having to fight, and then he ends up coming back to his city as the trajectory as his father did, where he actually has to become a gladiator and fight for his freedom. In the midst of this, he also meets Denzel's character, Mark Nicias, I think is how you pronounce his name, who thus buys him, and then he becomes his gladiator and comes to Rome so he can basically enact a little bit of his own revenge to Rome for what they have done to him. Now, keep in mind the story starts basically 16 years after the events of the first Gladiator. So now there is a new emperor. Now the two emperors are brothers. Emperor Geta and the second emperor is like Caracalla. I cannot pronounce that man's name. But these two are the lunatic emperors who basically go to the games and they just want to see people die. Even when they're not in the games, they just always constantly want to see people fighting. And they're starting to lose the Roman people. And the way the Roman people feel about these emperors is you can kind of start seeing it in the people, how they're starting to feel unjustified in their rule, or excuse me, in their reign. The thing that I love most about this story is that, as oddly enough how I explained it, there are basically multiple storylines in this movie, and I still didn't talk on Pedro Pascal's character and what he plays, and also Pedro Pascal's wife, what they also play in an additional role into this movie. But to me, this movie was amazing because it was paced so well. Like, you can always expect there's always going to be action, and to me, this kind of outdoes the first Gladiator, because the first Gladiator had amazing action sequences, but this one they really revved it up. They had more graphics in here. There were scenes with rhinos, with sharks, with monkeys, even like other hand-to-hand combat. Like, even when they weren't using like CGI graphics, you were still mesmerized by the fight scenes, by the depth, by the different kills, and the storyline in this with between Denzel and Lucius was just amazing. Like, Denzel, I heard people talking about how he was basically gonna be in the running for best supporting actor. He got that. Like, he did that in this role. Like, he was that villainous villain that you could never take your eyes off. He was always plotting, and that's the thing that I loved about this movie. You never really knew like you, it was times and like he goes, oh, Denzel's a good guy because he's out for himself. But then you start realizing he's pretty much not a good guy. He's out it for himself, and he's just kind of like one of the major minor villains, if you will, on top of the two crazy brothers who are the emperors, who are completely insane. And then you have the story of Lucius and how he becomes the basically following his father's footsteps, who comes back into the gladiator and fighting in his own home country again, even though he's essentially a prince, but he's still fighting like he's a regular person, even though he doesn't have the lineage, or excuse me, he didn't have the role as his father had as a general, but he still has his fighting spirit, and he's just kicking ass and taking names. Like this movie was it. Like I said, action, suspense, storyline, paced well, cinematography beautiful, acting well done. I mean, this movie's like a 9.5 out of 10. Like, I seen IMDb had this like 7.7. They're hard graders, but this movie is it. Ridley Scott kind of needed a win, and he got it. And I hear they're working on Gladiator 3 already. How this ends, I'm not 100% sure how they would do that. Nothing essentially bad happens, but it just like it almost ended kind of perfectly. Well, I don't think they really need a part 3, but if they would happen to do one, I would go see it because it was good. So drop those comments when you guys do go see. This is an early review. The movie does not come out until November 22nd. So like I said, when y'all do get a chance to go see it, drop those comments and let me know what you guys think.